Where it is possible, we've raised it to 74 and so on. So there's been a consistent, continuing effort to relax our policy towards FDI. First, it went sector by sector. Then there was this approach taken so that most of which can go through the automatic route. So in that process, further simplification, if necessary, we are willing to do, is what is conveyed.
Also, ma'am, you have increased the Mudra loan limit to 20 lakhs, like that cap. So can we expect the increase in Shishu, Tarun, like their types increase? So how much it will be? Can you give detail on that?
We've said this only today. See how this works.
Okay, thank you.
I request you to please one question each person. 123, please. Here.
Shrimi Chaudhary here from Business Standard. I just wanted to understand that budget proposes withdrawal of equalization levy. So if you could just give some explanation of what led to that, what is the intention behind that, keeping in mind the pact between India and US which has ended on June 30th.
No, as the Pillar 1, Pillar 2 negotiations have been going on since 22. And since then, one of the things which was becoming more than obvious was, if at all we are going through this Pillar 1 and Pillar 2, which we intend to, the negotiations and the OECD, backed by the US administration, have all been pushing for this. We wanted a fair solution, so negotiations have been going on. But the point of contention from then has always been, should we collect an equalization levy then, if at all we are getting into this global understanding through the Pillar 1 and Pillar 2? In any case, for India, equalization levy also meant for those who are living abroad that you were holding it, but eventually they are going to only adjust it somewhere. So in the interest of moving towards Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 solution, which the negotiations are still going on one aspect of it, on the other, in all probability, we are close to a conclusion. It was necessary for us, through the Parliament, to take steps to ensure that we are entering into that scheme of things without this equalization levy hanging on us, because this was important for us, but if it is a global system, this cannot continue. And therefore, with a positive approach towards the Pillar 1 and Pillar 2, we've moved forward to inform the Parliament that we would like to close this.
270.
I may clarify that it is only the 2% levy which has been withdrawn. The 6% levy which was earlier imposed, that continues.
What will happen to the tax collected so far from all these companies under this 2% equalization?
That has already been collected. We'll see. I mean, it is only this withdrawal is only prospective.
Ruchika from Business Standard this side. Ma'am, the miscellaneous capital receipts have seen an increase in this budget to almost 50,000 crore. Is there the miscellaneous capital receipts?
Okay.
Can you share the government's game plan as to how will we achieve this increase?
The miscellaneous capital receipts are budgeted as 50,000 crore, which was like 23-24 also, it was 51,000 crore, the interim budget. Now it's 50,000 crore, 24-25. And this combines with all kinds of receipts which are otherwise disinvestment receipts, asset monetization receipts and other kinds, which will be clubbed with that. So this budgeted figure is 50,000 crore.
Ma'am, very good evening. Sapna Das here from CNBC. Ma'am, two questions. On the incentive employment scheme that you have announced, 2 lakh odd crore is your overall fiscal envelope over the duration of the scheme. Could you give us a sense as to, we are already almost halfway through the current financial year by the time you pass the budget. So practically around 7 months will remain for the financial year, but any kind of an allocation that you have done for this scheme for this year, ma'am? One is that. And ma'am, just a corollary also on the miscellaneous receipts question, though not very much part of this budget, but nevertheless, ma'am, government had a very, kind of a bold privatization program. Do we understand that this is now being calibrated? That's it, ma'am. Thank you.
First question. As you rightly observed, there are only this is not a full financial year. The schemes have just been announced. They will now go through a process of quick design, appraisal and approval. However, budget provisions have been made for these schemes, partly in the Ministry of Labour and Employment and partly in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs for the intern. We stand committed to funding them fully to the extent that may actually be required. These are just very rough estimates based on how much time it might take to kick off. On the miscellaneous capital receipts?
Well, I think in the interim budget, FM had announced, we are going for a holistic strategy for management of equity in PSUs. And I think which includes, value creation and also, using the performance, the capex, the dividends and consistent dividend policy and the capital management all together, and also the calibrated disinvestment strategy, which also includes listing and market dilution, but all together in a holistic way so that value maximization is there. I think the same strategy is going to continue.
122.
Hi, Rishabh with NDTV Profit here. I have two questions. One on the space fund that was announced, the 1,000 crore fund. What will be the composition of this? Which will be the nodal agency and what sort of startups will the government invest in? And on the NPS, you also mentioned that the NPS committee has made progress in the speech. Could you elaborate a bit on that?
So we have seen that there's a lot of interest of the private sector on participating in the space program. Hitherto, the participation used to be on being a supplier to the space program, but now development of the satellite, mounting experiments there, they're getting into that space. And if you recall, even FDI was opened up in that sector. This is an attempt that Indian entrepreneurs, Indian startup who want to risk capital to get into that area, that should be facilitated. We believe that the amount is 1,000 crore, but that can have a very large multiplier effect. And that's what the scheme announces.
On your question on I think your second question was on the government NPS, right? So, as you know, there is a committee which is looking into it. The committee has done a lot of detailed calculations of the fiscal implications of different ways of addressing what are the expressed sort of priorities of the employees. We have been in dialogue with state governments. We have had discussions with each and every state government. We have met the staff side of the government has a staff consultative machinery, a formal machinery. We've had 4 meetings of that machinery to understand what are the staff's priorities. And our attempt is to design something that is fiscally prudent, but also meets what are the core priorities of the staff in terms of having a secured retirement income which provides for their needs. So this is a balancing act, because obviously there are costs. The more you give, more expensive it is. And so we are at an advanced stage of working out various options, and we are also discussing these options with the staff side. Just to correct the budget estimate that I gave earlier, 10,000 crores has been provided in Ministry of Labour and Employment for the new employment schemes, and 2,000 in Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Yeah.
125.
Good afternoon, I'm Nikunj from Reuters. A follow-up on that FDI facilitation, you said that government will take steps to facilitate FDI. The Eco Survey also yesterday said that the government should import capital from China so that there's a right balance between investments and trade. So will the government also take steps to quickly facilitate investments from China that have been pending for long? And secondly, you've come up with an NPS for minors. So will that also have some sort of tax benefits to nudge people to enroll for NPS so that a pension coverage increases? Thanks.
See, Economic Survey gave its view on the investments from China. As things stand today, investments do go through the Press Note 3 process when it comes from China or from any of our neighboring countries. So that process is still on. Economic Survey has indicated that it might be time for us to open up and allow for. So that's a Economic Survey. I'm glad that the Secretary is seated here. It's normally an arm's distance. But that doesn't mean that I'm disowning the suggestion. You want to say?
10. In general, as you can see, our aim is tax code simplification and not complication. So beyond that, I don't have anything specific on that. But the general direction of travel is obvious. We are not creating more and more tax deductions for individual tax instruments.
रिस्पेक्टेड मैडम, मेरा नाम नरेश वत्स है और मैं स्वतंत्र पत्रकारिता करता हूं। आज जो आपने किसानों के लिए और ग्रामीण क्षेत्र के आधारभूत संरचना के लिए काम किया है, उस पे दो तरह की राय आ रही है। एक राय तो ये कहती है कि गालिब ने ये कहकर तोड़ दी तस्बीह, क्यों गिनकर नाम लूं जो बिन मांगे बेशुमार देता है। एक वर्ग तो इस तरह से तारीफ बजट की कर रहा है, लेकिन दूसरी तरफ प्रतिपक्ष के नेता राहुल गांधी ने कहा है कि आंध्र प्रदेश और बिहार पर जो दरियादिली दिखाई है, कहीं न कहीं ये लगता है कि ये कुर्सी बचाने का बजट है। अखिलेश यादव जी भी ये कह रहे हैं, आप कैसे देखती हैं?
जिन इंडी अलायंस का मेंबर्स साथ होकर के भी 230 पार नहीं किया और जहां बीजेपी अकेला 240 तक पहुंचे और प्री इलेक्शन अलायंस के साथ आज सरकार तीसरी बार बनाए, प्रधानमंत्री जी का तीसरी बार स्वतंत्र भारत के चरित्र में पिछले 60 साल में जो नहीं हुआ अभी हुआ है। कुर्सी बचाने के बात करने वाले पार्टियों थोड़ा सोच ले। उनके अलायंस 230 कुल मिलाकर कितने पार्टियां थे? 25, 26 पता नहीं, मैं गिनी नहीं, बट इंडी 37 पार्टीज कुल मिलाकर के 230 पार नहीं किया और वो बोल रहे हैं कुर्सी बचाने के लिए। जब प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी तीसरी बार प्रधानमंत्री बने और देश के लिए इतना घोषणा भी कर रहे हैं जिससे भारत देश का हर राज्य सामने आए, डेवलप हुए, और 1.50 लाख करोड़ इस बार बजट में स्टेट्स के लिए हम दे रहे हैं बिना इंटरेस्ट 50 साल के लिए फ्री। फिनांस कमीशन तो हमारे उनके सजेशन में इसका जिक्र तक नहीं किए, हम ही कर रहे हैं स्टेट्स के साथ काम करने के लिए। हर स्टेट का उनके अपने अपने प्रोजेक्ट्स जो प्रोसेस के चलते हुए आता है उन सबको हम मानते हैं और जरूर उनको जो फाइनेंस करना है वो हम करेंगे, मगर जिक्र इसलिए नहीं किया बजट में कुर्सी बचाने। जब उनका टोटल को एक और बार चुनावी सीट जो जीते हैं वो 101 और बार उसको गिनकर देख लें, 37 पार्टीज कुल मिलाकर के कुर्सी बचाने वाले बात बोलने का अर्हत अधिकार उनके पास नहीं होता है।
121.
Ma'am, Meghna Mittal from Money Control. In the union budget, you have announced financial support to MSMEs for shift to clean energy and also a new mechanism for credit so that they do not go into stress and they do not turn into NPAs. Any details on that?
I'm so glad you asked this question. I'm really glad because this budget, and I don't want to say it because I've presented it, I'm so grateful that the Prime Minister looks at every sector and says, what are we doing for them? What are we doing for? This has been his approach always. But this time around, we've spent a lot of time understanding also from those stakeholders who had consultation with us pre-budget. And MSME's request it has been for now several years that when they reach the SMA 1 stage itself, they get to be very, very tensed because banks stop their finances, meaning banks no longer lend to them. They are stressed as it is. And if they are stressed as it is, and if there is this threat that the bank will not further give them working capital, sooner, by the 90th day, they become NPAs. In order to give them a good workable solution, and I'm indeed grateful to this entire team of secretaries here, they spent a lot of time also talking with RBI to see how best we can address this issue. And RBI has also a very well established framework which we are quite respectful of, where banks are clearly given a bit of a margin to handle MSMEs at the SMA stage 1 itself, without pushing them to become SMA 2 stage, and then at the 90th day announce them as non-performing assets. So what actually has happened now, having discussed with the RBI, is that we'll provide them with a fund which will help them to have some kind of government guaranteed liquidity, or the banks can then, on the basis of the guarantee being given, on the back of the guarantees which are being provided by the government, lend them working capital and keep them moving. And if they restore themselves, they're going to be better off. So on this principle, I'll certainly ask you or Vivek to speak and explain it to you all.
As FM has already explained about the credit guarantee scheme, this will certainly facilitate the term loans without collateral or third-party guarantees. Then new assessment model for MSME credits, which will be based on their digital footprints and the kind of payments they are making, such as their PF contributions, salary payment, and other transactional data. This will help the banks in developing new models and will help in easier access of credit. Similarly, credit support during the stress period, this mechanism will facilitate their access to credit even during the stress period, for which some kind of support fund will be created, and based on the guarantee provided by that fund, they will be helped during the SMA 1, SMA 0 or SMA 2 periods. Then Mudra loans limit has been increased from 10 lakh to 20 lakh. Similarly, enhanced scope for mandatory onboarding in TREDS platform has been also reduced from 500 crore to 250 crore of turnover. SIDBI will also open more branches in MSME sectors.
In short, what it does is, for the MSMEs, through this one budget, we've announced 8 different steps, each one of them addressing this particular problems with MSMEs face, and for which the MSMEs during the stakeholder consultation wanted us to give them some solutions. So specifically 8 of them have been designed to address that. So,
I would just like to supplement 2 of the points. One is the credit guarantee scheme in the manufacturing sector of up to 100 crores for the acquisition of capital equipment, machinery, etc. So this is an idea which came from the MSMEs, as the Honorable Minister said, stating that typically MSME credit is for working capital, but they sometimes have needs to invest, and it could even be a new MSME enterprise which needs to invest in equipment. So the proposal in this scheme, which has also been discussed by a working group chaired by the Chief Economic Advisor with the Reserve Bank, with the credit guarantee institutions, is a self-financing mechanism. An MSME which wants to avail of a credit guarantee for this term loan will have to pay an initial upfront guarantee fee, followed by an annual top-up fee which will be based on the reducing balance of the loan. So there is no subsidy from the government which is envisaged in this scheme, unlike the CGT-MSE, which is a working capital loan scheme where the government actually provides the corpus. In this case, the corpus itself will be self-financing, coming from pooling of MSMEs' upfront fees. This is a scheme which they have asked for and which is viable on its own without government's financial subsidy. The government will have to provide a second level backstop guarantee in case the defaults exceed a particular level, which is unlikely, but there will be a backstop facility from the government. The second one on the SMA accounts, the criticism that we, or rather the grievance that came from the MSMEs is that when an MSME becomes delayed in repayment and enters into what is called special mention account 0 and then special account 1 and then eventually NPA, even if they never become an NPA but they enter the territory of special mention account, banks become reluctant to provide them additional working capital. And during this period, they are not able to access working capital, and this makes it more difficult for them to do business. So the proposal here is that the government, with money from the government, would create a credit guarantee fund, and during the SMA period, if an MSME wants more credit, it has become an SMA, so the bank perhaps has some qualms about lending to the institution. During that period, if they extend further credit, that further credit within certain limits which will be specified in the scheme would be made available to them against a guarantee from this government institution. So this will enable MSMEs to continue to operate during the SMA period without the difficulties which they say they are currently facing.
One small point, sir, I wanted to add on the, sorry.
Perhaps the first part of your question was on the energy side, the cleaner energy, that what that scheme is about to help small and micro units. Often when we talk about moving towards the cleaner forms of energy, our attempt or our focus is on large industries, and these small industries do not have the financial strength to get into those areas. So first part is help them getting an audit done, which is an investment grade, meaning what it would take to move to help them moving towards a more efficient use of energy. A step prior to that is move them to a cleaner forms of energy, whatever they have been using it. And we know that for some of the traditional industries, the fuel being used is not really clean. This has health issues, it has environmental issues. So that is particular scheme is providing them an organized audit system plus a financial support.
Just one small point which could not be highlighted in the speech, but which is primarily aimed at MSMEs, pertains to the expenditure that is allowed on partnership firms for the salary that is paid to the working partners. So presently the limits are for the firms which have a profit of 3 lakh or less. It is capped at 1.5 lakh rupees. Or 90%, whichever is lower. So this limit has been increased to 3 lakh and up to a profit of 6 lakh. So this will also reduce taxation on these partnership firms, most of which are in the micro and small enterprises sector. Thank you.
212. There.
मैम, मैं पीयूष पांडे हूं, TV9 भारतवर्ष से। मेरा सवाल कैपिटल गेन टैक्स को लेकर के है, जिसमें आपने लॉन्ग टर्म को लेकर के जो प्रपोजल दिया है, उसमें इंडेक्सेशन का जो फायदा है वो खत्म कर दिया गया है। इससे मिडिल क्लास और लोअर क्लास को सीधे तौर पर नुकसान होगा। क्या आपने इस बारे में जो प्रस्ताव दिया है उसके बारे में थोड़ा सा बताएं।
जो आप और संजय जी आपको बेहतर हिंदी में समझाएंगे, लेकिन मैं जो इतना ही कह सकता हूं कि क्या 20% विथ इंडेक्सेशन से 12.5% विदाउट इंडेक्सेशन ज्यादा है, यही सवाल है। मतलब आज का रेट है 20%, उस 20% टैक्स रेट में आपको इन्फ्लेशन के लिए एक छूट मिलता है, लेकिन नया रेट है 12.5। तो तो हमारा कैलकुलेशन के हिसाब से ऐसे संभव नहीं है, एटलीस्ट इन 95% ऑफ द केसेस, कि ये 12.5% वो 20% से ज़्यादा हो, ऐसा संभव नहीं है। क्योंकि अगर आपका मकान का वैल्यू एक साल में 10% बढ़ रहा है तो उसमें 4% ही आपको इन्फ्लेशन इंडेक्सेशन मिलता है, 6% तो कैपिटल गेन ही होता है। 6% में 20% कितना होता है? 1.2। 10% में 12.5 कितना है? 1.25, तो ऑलमोस्ट बराबर है। लेकिन मकानों में 10% रफ्तार से नहीं बढ़ता है, दे ग्रो एट 20% पर एनम। अगर 20% है, 20% में 4% निकाल दीजिए, 16% हो गया। 16% में आप 20% टैक्स देंगे तो 3.2 होता है, इसमें सिर्फ 2.5 आएगा। तो इसमें फायदा है। मैं कहूँगा कि इस बदलाव के वजह से मिडिल क्लास को बहुत फायदा हुआ है कि 20% विथ इंडेक्सेशन इज मच हायर इन मोस्ट केसेस देन 12.5% विदाउट इंडेक्सेशन।
चीज़ और स्पष्ट करने की आवश्यकता है कि जो इंडेक्सेशन का लाभ वर्ष 2001 तक का दिया गया है उसको विड्रॉ नहीं किया गया। तो यदि 2001 से पूर्व की संपत्ति खरीदी गई है तो उसको 2001 तक का इंडेक्सेशन का लाभ मिलेगा, केवल उसके बाद में ही वो लाभ को वापस लिया गया।
269।
Hello ma'am, good afternoon. I'm Kriti from Informist Media. So, two quick clarifications. Your small savings collections, so you have revised down the estimate by about over 35,000 crore from what you had projected in the interim budget for this year. And so you have also revised down the borrowing from it. So, why would that be? What was the rationale behind, why are you not expecting that much of collection what you were expecting earlier in February? And secondly, you have significantly brought down your T-bill borrowing, like you're repaying 50,000 crore. So, if you could elaborate more on that.
I thought economic survey went into good details of explaining what's happening to small saving as different from what's moving into the stock market and everything else. So you had the background very well narrated in the economic survey. One. And now, on the basis of what we've given in the budget, many things can be understood and explained. Somanathan will get into the details. Also, I would think it is only prudent for the government to make sure that your T-bills are handled much more prudently. In the very way in which you ask the question, that comes out. But in any case, you can get the details from the Finance Secretary.
So, as I'm sure you're referring to the same sheet, the expected receipts from small savings, which were 4,71,000 last year, that is revised estimates, were actually 451 in the provisional actuals. So between the revised estimate and the actuals, there was a slight decline. Taking that decline into account, we just projected that what we expected would not be realized during the current year. Why has this happened? It is a mix of various other factors, the attractiveness of other investments such as the stock market which have been discussed, bank deposit rates going up. So there could be a variety of reasons, but this is a projection. Our projection is what we have given here of 4,20,000 crores. As regards T-bills, as you know, the fiscal deficit has been reduced between last year and this year and between the interim budget and this budget. That reduction we have chosen to reduce primarily in the T-bill segment rather than in the dated securities. So that's a conscious choice to reduce our exposure to the short-term T-bills.
Ma'am, I am Monica from the New Indian Express. Ma'am, regarding this Income Tax Act, I want to know what are the major issues or concerns that have prompted the government to undertake this comprehensive review, and if you can shed light on the anticipated timeline for the implementation of these changes.
I think not just this year, but we've been talking about simplifying personal income tax. The direct taxation code itself is something which has been discussed now for nearly 4-5 years. As much as I remember, since 2019 we've been talking about it, if not earlier. So the idea is gradually we are moving towards a simplified taxation regime, And of course, even as we talk about it, also to bring down the incidence of tax itself. So there is no new context, but a context which has prevailed for some time, and therefore we are taking this review up now. As to how it'll and when it'll come into force, it'll be too early for me to say. I've just announced it. We'd like to do it at the earliest. I think I've given some kind of a 6 months time or something. 6 months. We'll do that. But I'm not giving you anything more than what I've said in the budget speech now.
272.
I'm holding 272.
Yeah.
The working majority in parliament. Ma'am, सीताराम येचुरी जी ने एक सवाल किया जो मैं समझना चाहता हूँ बेसिकली।
आप अपना परिचय दे दें।
मेरा नाम कृष्ण मोहन शर्मा है, मैं भारत एक्सप्रेस में एडिटर हूँ। सीताराम येचुरी जी ने आज कहा कि सरकार फिजिकल डिफिसिट कम करना चाहती है, इसका मतलब ये होता है कि सरकार खर्चा नहीं करना चाहती, और खर्चा नहीं करना चाहती इसका मतलब सरकार गवर्नमेंट डिपेंडेंट कंज्यूमर सोसाइटी बनाना चाहती है।
सीताराम येचुरी जी के आइडियोलॉजी कम्युनिस्ट आइडियोलॉजी है। मैं उसको इधर इसलिए जिक्र कर रही हूँ, सरकार के द्वारा जो खर्च पर्टिकुलरली कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर मतलब एसेट क्रिएशन, पब्लिक एसेट क्रिएशन, प्राइवेट नहीं, पब्लिक एसेट क्रिएशन के लिए 11 लाख इस बजट में घोषित किया है। 11,11,111 करोड़ सिर्फ इस साल बजट में पब्लिक एसेट क्रिएशन के लिए, जो सभी लोगों के लिए जनता के हित में जो एसेट बिल्ड होता है, जिससे रोजगार बढ़ती है, जिससे जाना आना उसका सुविधा होता है, जिससे हमारी कैपेसिटी पोर्ट्स में, एयरपोर्ट्स में बढ़ती है। ये खर्च पब्लिक के लिए, सभी जनता के लिए जहां उठा रहे हैं सरकार, खर्च कहां कम कर रही है। थोड़ा बजट रिपोर्ट को पूरा पढ़ने के बाद उनके बयान देने के लिए सुझाव दीजिए।
Just to give you the figures of total expenditure, they have increased from 41.9 lakh crores in 22-23 to 44.42 lakh crores in last year's provisional actuals, and are budgeted at 48.2 lakh crores in 24-25. So expenditure is actually going up substantially.
265.
Revenues are also going up.
265, please.
Sir, Vikas Dhoot from the Hindu. This is actually to get some details on the expenditure budget details that I went through. One of the highest increases we are seeing in outlay.
Can you introduce yourself again?
On the capital outlay side on other general
Can you
services.
introduce yourself, Vikant, again?
Yeah, this is Vikas from the Hindu.
Vikas from Hindu Business Line.
So on the capital outlay in the other general services head, we are seeing a jump from 6 crore to 62,600 crore roughly. And we try to match it. I think it talks about the allocation as being for new schemes. So I wanted to get a sense of which schemes are covered.
This was actually mentioned in the interim budget speech. You see, this budget is a continuation of the interim budget. If you remember, there was an announcement of a large scheme for innovation, research and development, the funding for which was housed in the Department of Economic Affairs, and that continues to be housed there until the target groups and the various departments which will implement it are decided upon. Secondly, so that's not the only component of the 62,000. The government has followed an approach of encouraging infrastructure departments to spend and complete projects as quickly as they can and not to be constrained by their budget estimates. But at the same time, we do not know in advance which of these infrastructure departments may need more money than has been budgeted. So for example, I said that there's 2.53 lakh crores for railways, 2.4 lakh crores for roads. It's possible that they may need more, and if they need more, we have set aside money for that, which is kept tentatively in the Department of Economic Affairs, but which will be reallocated to the necessary departments when the need arises. That is what the 62,000 is for.
Anybody else wants to? Okay, 62.
मैं लक्ष्मण CNBC आवाज से। दो चीज़ें, एक तो गोल्ड पे इंपोर्ट ड्यूटी में अच्छी खासी कटौती की गई, इसके पीछे क्या सोच है। दूसरी चीज़ें कि बजट में सरकार की पब्लिक सेक्टर एंटरप्राइजेस पॉलिसी के बारे में कोई डेवलपमेंट, कोई रोड मैप नहीं आया है। क्या सरकार इस पॉलिसी से कुछ अलग सोच रही है?
किसके ऊपर?
डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट पॉलिसी।
हाँ।
गोल्ड, देखिए, जो गोल्ड एंड प्रेशियस मेटल्स, जेम्स एंड ज्वेलरी क्षेत्र हमारे लिए बहुत ही एक महत्वपूर्ण क्षेत्र है। ये ध्यान रहे कि जो कुल निर्यात होता है भारत का, उसका लगभग 8% से अधिक भाग इस क्षेत्र से आता है। लगभग 50 लाख लोग इसके अंदर में नियोजित हैं आज के दिन में। तो ये हमारे लिए बहुत एक महत्वपूर्ण क्षेत्र है और इसी को ध्यान में रखते हुए हमने इसकी इंपोर्ट ड्यूटी कम की है, ताकि जो हमारे इस व्यापार में लोग जुड़े हुए हैं, उस उद्योग में जुड़े हुए हैं, उनको गोल्ड और अन्य जो प्रेशियस मेटल्स हैं वो उनको आसानी से उपलब्ध हो पाए। मुख्य कारण इसका यही है। हाँ, ये संभव है कि इससे जो कुछ आप पिछले समय में देख रहे थे कि अनअकाउंटेड आयात जो है वो हो रहा था या स्मगलिंग हो रही थी, उस पर भी कुछ अंकुश लग सकता है। लेकिन मुख्य कारण इसमें एम्प्लॉयमेंट, रोजगार को बढ़ाना, निर्यात को बढ़ाना है।
No, very well taken. He will say it in English, but I'm wondering if it's a journalist from the south. No problems.
No, only thing I said is this is primarily to increase employment in this huge labor-intensive sector of gems and jewelry, where we have reduced the duties. It contributes more than 8% to India's exports, and 50 lakh people are actually employed in this. So this is the primary reason. There's another announcement in this regard, not on import duties, but for diamonds also. For raw diamonds, the Honorable Minister had announced that raw diamonds, we will give a special harbor rate for the foreign mining companies. So it should, both of them should be seen in that light to basically promote employment in these labor-intensive sectors. Thank you.
211.
लक्ष्मण जी, जैसे मैंने बताया कि हमारा जो होलिस्टिक डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट स्ट्रैटेजी, होलिस्टिक स्ट्रैटेजी है वैल्यू क्रिएशन की, उसके बीच में वैल्यू जैसे हम क्रिएट करते हैं तो उसका कैलिब्रेटेड डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट भी होती है। जैसे पीछे भी लिस्टिंग हुई थी, इरेडा की लिस्टिंग हुई थी, उससे पहले LIC की हुई थी, मार्केट डिल्यूशंस भी हैं। तो मतलब कैलिब्रेटेड वे से करेंगे, लेकिन वैल्यू क्रिएशन पे फोकस है, जिसमें कि सबसे बड़ी बात है कि उनके फंडामेंटल परफॉर्मेंस के बारे में, CPSCs के, उसके बाद उनके कैपेक्स से लिंक, उनकी कंसिस्टेंट डिविडेंड पॉलिसी। आपने देखा होगा नॉन टैक्स रेवेन्यू में गवर्नमेंट काफ़ी मतलब अर्न की है, अबाउट 63,000 करोड़ पिछले साल भी आया है।